What is good? Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Welcome to the Gold Standard Podcast. I am Rob Stats Guerrera. He is the human wet blanket, Levin Black. Happy Thanksgiving, Levin.
No, happy Maui Invitational Purdue champions beat the number 11, 7, and 4 team in the country in back-to-back nights. They won it 2 years in a row. That's what we're here to talk about, right?
No, we're not here to talk about that giant beige jerk. We're not talking about that. We're talking about 49ers Seahawks on Thanksgiving. It is going to be so much fun. We are going to break it down before the game, and then obviously after the game, we'll be on here for the instant reaction show. But before we get to all that, I just want to say, please like and subscribe to the Gold Standard YouTube channel and rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. If you leave a review, we will read it on the show, and I read all the reviews. This is a 4-star review from Fun Police Lou, who says, it's beginning to be a bit much. Some of these shows are my favorite, and some are getting to be exhausting. I like Rob, but I think he's on too many of the shows. By Friday, I'm exhausted by him yelling the same thing over and over. He doesn't change his opinion or even tweak it based on what other people say. So you just hear him yell the same thing on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm already dreading Verrett being signed to the practice squad, a move that costs basically nothing and makes sense because Rob will yell, hurt guys get hurt over and over and over. Michelle is still great. Vish is fascinating. Apparently, I'm a bit much.
I don't disagree. And yeah, why don't you change your opinion? Like I said on Monday when I chimed in and trolled in your chat, Vish is right, Rob is wrong. That pretty much goes for 4 out of the 5 days of the week. And that's only because you're only on 4 out of 5 days of the week.
Well, first, let me just say Vish is usually right. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. Second of all, thanks for the compliment. Yeah, I don't change my opinion based on what other people say. That's why it's my opinion.
You should if you get delivered new information or new angles you didn't think about. You're saying that never happens?
No, of course that happens. Not according to that reviewer, anyway. Diego says, thankful for Levin. That's just a lie. Thankful for the whole Gold Standard Podcast Network. Thank you, Diego. Diego's been supporting us from the very beginning, and we appreciate it. When I would do the, what do they call it on Twitter? Why can't I think of it? The spaces. Diego was always hopping in the spaces. Thank you so much. I should do more of those, but we appreciate everybody here.
Yeah, you lazy piece of crap.
I know. I've slacked off a little bit here. I got to pick it up again. But thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. FS says, I like having you on the shows, Rob. Thank you, FS. I hope you're a real person.
Yeah, that FS stands for full of shit.
Shit. Boy, I walked right into that. All right, let's get into this matchup because this is going to be kind of a shorter show because, again, the game is tomorrow. We'll have the instant reaction show. The shelf life on this show is not going to be super long. But let's dive into it, Levin. When I started digging in, the more I dug in, the more I thought the 49ers should win this game. I'm convinced the 49ers are going to win this game. Unless they just go up and lay an egg, there is no reason not to come out of Seattle with a victory. And in my opinion, full control of the NFC West.
I don't know why that's shocking. They beat this team 3 times last year. They are a better team, both on paper in terms of statistics this year and on paper in terms of roster quality. We've known this. Seattle's not quite on the same level. It doesn't mean they're guaranteed to lose. This game being in Seattle is a big factor. But the Niners, if they play a normal game, just not like a crazy great game, just normal what they should play, they win this game and they win it easily.
Yeah, you mentioned the 3 victories last year. They outscored Seattle 89-43 in those 3 games. So, yeah, it was beautiful. But it's in Seattle. It's a short week, Thursday night. The crowd is going to be absolutely insane. The Seahawks will have some crazy stuff. They're going to have a trick play. It's not going to be a normal game because it never is totally normal. But I still think the Niners should come away with a win. And the biggest reason I think that, Levin, is because they ran all over the Seahawks in those 3 matchups last year. Just off the top of your head, I hope you haven't looked this up. How many yards do you think the 49ers averaged on the ground in their 3 matchups against the Seahawks last year?
I will say 147.
Higher. They averaged 180 yards on the ground against the Seahawks last year. They ran it for an average of 37 times for 180 yards. 180 yards. They should be able to hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason and just run them the hell over. And that is the best, safest game plan in Seattle on a short week.
Depends on how you look at it. I mean, Brock Purdy, if you think he's real, and clearly Kyle Shanahan thinks he's the real deal. This Seattle defense has been worse against the pass than the rush this year. Like that secondary that has been getting a lot of love. Like every time I hear the Seattle team brought up in like a preview for the game, and I'm not just talking about this game, I'm talking about all season, they've been like, yeah, they have a great young secondary. Oh yeah, then why are they 17th against the pass in terms of yards allowed per game? Like, no, they're not that great against the pass. Rushing wise, they've only given up the 6th most rushing yards per game. But I do have to agree that the Niners should be able to find some daylight against them in the running game, because despite being 6th in against the run, it's because teams haven't tried to run on them because they've been bad enough against the pass. They're actually way down at I think they're tied for, let me look at my notes. Yeah, 17th for average yards per rush allowed. So it's not like they're a great defense. If you look at their like overall numbers, both offense and defense, almost every single thing they fall into between like 16th and 20th. Like they're just mediocre at everything. They don't have a clear weakness, but they're also don't have a clear like strength either.
By the way, that's not likely to improve with Geno Smith, who's incredibly banged up. Before Salad asks, is Geno Smith playing? Yes, he's playing. He's listed as questionable. He's expected to play. He has a triceps bruise, or at least what they're calling a triceps bruise, after Aaron Donald obliterated him last week. Did you actually see that hit, Levin? He absolutely blows Geno Smith up.
Yeah, I only saw it in replays. I didn't see it live, but
yeah,
it's one of those injuries that he's going to start the game. Whether or not he can finish the game, I think, is very, very murky, because one hit, or even like he makes a throw and really stresses that arm, he could be done for the day.
I'll be fascinated to see what he looks like. I did go back and watch the final drive of the game last week against the Rams, because he came back in for that drive, and he got them in a position to attempt a winning field goal. It was a 55-yarder, but he got him down there, and he looked like he was throwing the ball okay. He didn't look like it was affecting him, but you're right. We'll see. Maybe it'll be okay, but maybe one hit, he hits the ground. Who knows what the case may be, but he is technically playing. Kenneth Walker is listed as doubtful. Pete Carroll said he's not expected to play. So that's obviously good news for the 49ers. Not that he's hurt, but just that he's not playing. Andre says the Niners should win, but we know that clown Pete Carroll will always give us fits. Seattle's running back will not play, but it's those wide receivers who give us fits. We need to play strong defense. They generally have good games against the 49ers, but it's not. It doesn't hurt on the scoreboard. And you know, Levin, how many times have I talked about it? Yards and points. You can give up yards. If you don't give up points, it doesn't matter. And the Niners have generally given up yards to DK and to Tyler Lockett, but not a lot of points, at least last year.
Yes and no. I mean, Seattle has had this knack for pretty much the entire Pete Carroll era, if you want to call it that, of giving up yards and not being like statistically dominant in terms of yards, but the scoreboard not reflecting that. And so this is a game, like, even if the Niners can move the ball, they need to finish, and they need to finish drives on both sides of the ball to tie into what you're talking about. Like, Seattle might be able to move the ball and get some yards. They need to not get points on the board, and vice versa, because that's just, it's weird. Like the Pete Carroll Seattle teams are constantly like, how are they 7-3? How are they 6-4? Or whatever, their record is in a given year, because you look at every statistic and you go, they shouldn't be winning that many games. I mean, they have a negative point differential this year. They're -2.
But yet,
they have a winning record, and they're right in the division.
Right. Yeah. They're going to be a pain in the ass. The good news, I saw this tweet from Steph Sanchez. So you talk about the Niners finishing. She tweeted, in the last 2 weeks, the Niners offense has been 8 of 22 on third down. That's only 36%. And they're just 3 of 8 at scoring touchdowns in the red zone. That's only 37%. But the good news is that Seattle's defense is not that good. They rank 28th in red zone scoring percentage allowed and 29th in third down conversion percentage allowed. So this is potentially a get right week for the 49ers in their 2 problem areas, even in big wins the last 2 weeks.
It would be nice. I mean, that's kind of the only weakness you could point to in the last few weeks for the 49ers offense is, oh, well, they haven't finished drives overly well, even though they've still put up 30.5 points per game the last 2 weeks. So like, yeah, they haven't finished drives yet. They put up that many points. So what happens when they do finish drives?
That's the crazy thing. As even in the first 5 games of the year, they weren't necessarily finishing everything all the time, and they're still putting up 30 points a game. And maybe they're getting back to that. Obviously, you'd like to see them get better on third down. You'd like to see them get better in the red zone. The thing with the third downs is it's a little misleading because they don't have third downs. When this offense is really clicking, they never get to third down. It's always first and second down, just conversion and move the chains. And so sometimes that third down stat is a little deceptive in terms of the overall picture of how the offense is playing.
Yeah, you're not wrong in that. It seems like if they do get to a third down, it's because there was a penalty and it's 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15, or something along those lines. And that's why they don't end up converting. So it is a little misleading. It gets into, when you get to the whole season, it's probably large enough sample size to know what a team was on third down. When you're talking about just 2 games, it's not the most reliable statistic.
Lee Ving says it's going to be a tough day. Have to get a good buzz going to deal with the relatives, but not be plastered for the game. Happy Thanksgiving, all. Yeah, you got to thread that needle, Lee.
I don't get to thread that needle. I don't have thread and I don't have a needle.
So are you're just going to abstain from alcohol until the game, till after the game? What's your plan for tomorrow?
Well, I'll be at work until the game starts, essentially. So yes,
boo,
I'll be abstaining. Well, yes and no. I mean, I get a ribeye.
Wait, I was going to ask about that. That's right. So for anybody that doesn't know, Levin is like the Homer Simpson of like a gas plant. He works at a gas plant. If anything blows up, you can blame him.
It's the only way to explain it that people can kind of wrap their mind about it. It's a little misleading, and I want to get that on the record for anybody that's out there listening and actually knows my job. Like, yes, it is a Homer Simpson job. I sit there and don't have to do anything a large majority of the time. The only difference is when something did happen that Homer needed to know, he just hit random buttons or actually ran away in one episode and went home. I can't do that. I have to know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I want to get that on the record.
Whatever you say. The point is, when you work on holidays, you get like a feast lobster, ribeyes, whatever it is. It's like a ridiculous feast. What is it going to be this year? It's going to be ribeyes.
Yeah, it's ribeyes, and then let's see, for sides we have twice baked potatoes. We have some roasted Brussels sprouts. We have mac and cheese, obviously. Potato salad, actual salad. I'm forgetting one of them.
Do they cook all that on site, or is it just brought in already cooked?
The sides are normally like, they're like pre-prepped. They go to Costco or Sam's Club, depending on who's going that year to pick it up for all the operators, because it's normally like one of the supervisors or one of the maintenance guys can break off during the day and go do that on the Wednesday before. And it's up to their preference on where they want to go. But they get like the sides that are like ready to go. You might want to throw them in the oven because that makes them better, but you could just microwave it because they're already cooked, really.
Got it.
And then the steaks obviously are fresh. Like, nobody wants reheated steak.
Right. That's still pretty good. I mean, it stinks having to work on a holiday, but if I got to be at work, a ribeye does sort of make that go down a little bit easier. And that's somebody who hasn't worked in an office in 4 years now, 3 years, whatever it is.
Did you have, I'm assuming at ESPN you had to work Thanksgiving from time to time.
Yes, I've
But
worked every holiday at Thanksgiving. I mean, at
but
ESPN.
yeah, but with Pro Football Talk, did you work Thanksgiving? Because there's always football on Thanksgiving, so Florio is active, but I feel like he probably does that from home.
I would work Thanksgiving. Florio, I don't believe he would work the game at night for NBC.
Right.
So he would be working, but he wouldn't do the radio show. Sometimes I would host it. Sometimes somebody else would host it. But it was easy for me to work Thanksgiving because the show ended at 9:00. So I was home. I didn't miss anything. So I always liked it because you got credit for working on a holiday. At ESPN, you got double time working on a holiday. So it was cool to do the morning show on a holiday. But anyway.
And now with your job, you just go outside to feel like you're still part of the world.
Right.
From time to time. You're like, okay, I've been in my house for like 15 days straight. I need to get some actual sunlight. I'm going to walk outside, and you walk outside for 5 minutes and you go, yeah, cool. And you go back to your basement, right?
Yeah, I kind of have a vampire. It's like a vampirish relationship with the sun.
Especially now that it's winter in Connecticut.
Exactly. Let's get back to 49ers Seahawks before we drive everybody away.
I want to talk about your personal life for the next 20 minutes.
King Joser says, Statsy, low-key Grant was kind of making me feel like he hates on Brock. I saw an interesting Brock Purdy.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I know. I saw an interesting Brock Purdy stat. Do you know that Brock Purdy has never lost to the NFC West? He's 5-0, and he has 9 touchdowns and no interceptions against the division, including the playoffs. I didn't realize he was that good.
I did not know the no interceptions. I heard after their last, who would that have been, last divisional win, that he was 5-0 with 9 touchdowns.
Well, Seattle in the playoffs last year.
Well, this is versus the NFC West.
Right. Seattle plays in the NFC West. They played them in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I'm talking about the 5-0, 9 TDs. I heard that stat immediately after their last divisional game, which
But this is including the playoffs.
Right. I get that. I'm just saying, like, I heard those. You said, have you seen this? I was saying, yes, I saw everything but the 0 interceptions after their last divisional game. I can't remember if it was Arizona or the Rams game this year.
Kyle Shanahan has won 9 straight games against the NFC West. Yeah. Do you know the last NFC West team that the 49ers lost to?
Arizona, the Trey Lance?
The Rams. Oh, wait a minute. It must have been. Yeah, you're right. They did lose that game, but the stat that the Niners had out there was 9 straight regular season games against the NFC West, and the Rams were the last team that beat them. So maybe, has it been 9 straight since that Trey Lance game? Maybe it has.
No, Trey Lance game would have been more than 9 ago.
So there you go.
So they must have probably lost the Trey Lance game and then lost to the Rams later that year, because you would have had 6 games last year in the division and 3 games this year already in the division, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is it 3 or 2? No, it's only 2.
It's 2.
So they would have won. Yeah. So if they count the playoffs last year, then it would be all of last year's games, including playoffs and the games this year, which means they lost to the Rams, and that would have been a season finale after that Arizona game that Trey Lance lost to.
King says, Stats, I asked the question when you were on with Grant, but I guess you didn't see it. I apologize. Something weird was going on with the comments during that show. I wasn't seeing everything that was there for some weird reason, so ask it again, and we'll try and answer it. But everything that I dig into, Levin, in this game is points to the 49ers winning.
Mm-hmm.
Deebo Samuel, for example. I saw this stat. He has 100+ receiving yards in 4 of his 5 career games against the Seahawks. He's going to play this week. He's been relatively quiet receiving-wise the past couple of weeks. Do you think this is going to be a big Deebo game?
It could be, but I think statistically, when you break it down, it is going to be, it points to, I guess I should say, more of a Kittle game once again. That's actually my favorite stats when I was looking into all of this were the defenses versus a tight end statistics. Because it actually is kind of mind-boggling, but I find it fascinating. Seattle is in the bottom 10 in terms of yards given up to tight ends. The Niners are the second best, yet the Niners have allowed 10 more targets to tight ends than Seattle has. So when you do that and you end up computing it, the Niners are best in the league at only giving up 4.5 yards per target to tight ends, whereas Seattle jumps all the way to I think it was 5th worst at 7.7 yards per target. 7.7 yards per target to tight ends. That's bad.
Per target, not per completion.
Yeah, per target. Tight ends have been targeted 70 times against Seattle this season. They've allowed 53 receptions for 542 yards.
Ooh.
Meanwhile, the Niners have allowed 80 targets to tight ends this year. But despite only 80 yards, despite 80 targets, which is 10 more than Seattle, they've only given up 363 yards. So they've given up, Seattle's given up 150% the amount of yards that the 49ers have against tight ends, despite 10 less targets. Like it's mind-bogglingly different. Like the gap is huge. By the way, the gap for the 49ers, like I said, they lead the league in yards allowed per target to tight ends at 4.5. The next closest team is over 6.
Wow. Well, thank you, Fred Warner, right? That's all 54.
Well, 57 probably has a big part of it too, but yes, those are the two biggest factors in that.
I think Kittle could have a big game. Last year against Seattle in 2 games, he had the big game on the short week Thursday game. Remember, that was the game where Brock had the broken rib and Kittle had that awesome touchdown on the double fake screen pass. Kittle ended up with 4 catches for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. He didn't play the first game that season because he was hurt. And then in the playoff game, he was just 2 catches for 37 yards. So we've seen both from Kittle. But I think that there's just too many weapons on San Francisco. Unless for whatever reason, the crowd noise really screws with the offensive line and the snap count. It's not supposed to rain, so we don't have to worry about that. Brock has already played in Seattle, so he knows what the noise is going to be like. Like everything points to the 49ers in this game.
So this is a game that the 49ers as an offense, I feel like there's only 2 ways to stop them when everybody's healthy, because there's so many weapons. Even if Ayuk is not having a good game or is losing his matchup over and over because it's just a bad matchup, the guy has his number, you still have so many weapons that the offense is good. Or if Kittle doesn't have a good matchup because Bobby Wagner's shutting him down, somebody else is going to step up. There's too many weapons. The way I think you stop this offense is if the quarterback is just off, and that happens to the best of them. Sometimes a quarterback is just plain off, and they're misfiring, they're not quite accurate enough in a game. Or with this offensive line, it's if the other team has a great game plan for their blitzes and it's not getting picked up and there's mistakes and miscommunication and the quarterback gets lit up. That's, I think, what we're at now for this offense is the way you stop them is get to the quarterback. If you don't get to the quarterback, you're screwed.
And here's the thing that I don't think Brock is getting enough credit for, and I said this with Grant. He's elevating the play of the offensive line. The offensive line, the pass protection has not been great this year at all by any stretch of the imagination. And Brock is either getting the ball out quick or he's sliding. He's extending the play. He's buying himself a little more time. He is making plays with pass protection that is not nearly as good as the top teams in the league. He's not getting enough credit for it. And so even if Seattle does get a little pressure, Brock has shown that he can do the little things that it takes to give himself more time to get the throw off.
Right. Pre-snap recognition matters a lot when it comes to beating a blitz.
Yep.
And I think Brock is very good at it. We've talked about that quite a bit between the two of us. But you also have guys like Juice and guys like Christian McCaffrey who are excellent in that pre-snap. And there have been times I've seen Juice make a signal, or you can see he's shouting out something pre-snap and he's calling out or he's pointing at where the blitzer is coming from. I think that helps tremendously. It's not just on the quarterback. You have a lot of crazy smart people outside of the quarterback position that are able to call out a blitz and recognize things.
King says, I asked why when Brock has a bad game, it's, oh, he's the last pick in the draft versus a good game. Oh, it's all the system. I think Brock is making Kyle's system the best he's ever dreamed of. I completely agree with you, King. I think it's both. I think it's Kyle setting up Brock to succeed, and I think it's Brock squeezing every single thing out of every opportunity that we have seen. When is the last time, Levin, we saw a clip on Twitter after a game where we're like, look at this wide open receiver that Brock Purdy missed. Yeah. Oh, that could have been a touchdown. How many times did we see that with other quarterbacks in this system? With Brock, we haven't seen it in a long time. Yes, there were a couple of missed opportunities in the 3-game losing streak, but if you look at the bigger picture of all of Brock Purdy's starts, he is maximizing those opportunities.
Yeah, I saw a stat. It was prior to this last game, so I haven't seen the updated number, but he was right around the middle of the pack. I want to say 13th, but you can't quote me on that. But 13th in the league in terms of average separation on targets, which is a fancy way of saying how open are the guys that you're throwing to. He was the middle of the league, so yeah, that's completely thrown out of the picture. I want to point out, like, he's not on Mahomes' level. Never will be. Mahomes is special. He's never going to be on that level. I mean, Mahomes, his first year starting, he threw for 50 plus touchdowns.
50.
So I want to say that right off the bat. But where was this crap of it's just the system when Mahomes emerged? Because when Mahomes emerged, guess what? He had Andy Reid. He had Tyreek Hill. He had Sammy Watkins when Sammy Watkins was still good. And he had, obviously, Travis Kelce. He had an excellent, and he had also 2 Pro Bowl tackles on his offensive line at the time. So, like, he had a crazy good supporting cast from the coaching to the players on offense too. So it doesn't hold water. There's very few times that somebody, and maybe never, I can't think of a single instance that somebody came on first starts, was super great, and he had a horrendous supporting cast.
CJ Stroud is kind of doing that with the Texans right now. It's not the best. It's certainly not a supporting cast like you described, but your point is well taken. Every quarterback benefits from good people around him. Like, that's not a new thing, but I think it can be both. I think that Brock benefits from the good people around him, but I also think he's putting the good people around him in position to succeed. Look at the increased production from Ayuk this year, who's on track for, 1,500 yards. Look at the increased production from George Kittle, who is scoring touchdowns at a rate that he never scored touchdowns at with any other quarterback. Kittle's on pace for 1,100 yards this season. Brock is also helping out the people around him. And I think we have to admit the obvious, that it's both. Both are benefiting from each other.
Right. I mean, Brock is the biggest came out of nowhere, took over the league type of quarterback since Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner, when he took over, he had 4, whenever Torrey Holt gets in the Hall of Fame, he'll get in there at some point. He had 4 Hall of Famers on that offense with him. Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Marshall Faulk, and Orlando Pace. So,
right.
Like, it just, that whole argument never held water. Oh, it's just because he has a crazy supporting cast in the system. Well, no, because if that's the case, then Jimmy Garoppolo would have to be the worst quarterback in the league.
Well,
he's not the
Jimmy
worst quarterback.
Right now?
He's going to still be around in the league. He's just not good.
If you're watching on the stream right now, you're seeing a video from Seattle Niners faithful. It's the buses arriving in Seattle. So the Niners are there in the Emerald City. I don't know if you're into that kind of thing, but there you go. The Niners are they've arrived. It's not the middle of the night. They're going to get sleep and all that stuff. So there you go. That's obviously exciting. I can't wait for this thing to kick off. I'm going to be waiting, all day. You have to get through some real crap games in the early window. Can we talk about that for a second? You're going to have to watch.
But before we do, I got to do a fashion show for our great supporter.
Oh,
here.
Boy.
King Joser is asking about my hat, and he wants to see it closer to the camera. So I'm purposely holding it in a way that it blocks my terrible hair because I'm in much of a need of a haircut.
And the rest of your face, too.
There you go. Well, nobody complains about that.
Well, I think they would if people watching on the stream. If you have any complaints about Levin's face, leave it in the comments. I'll definitely throw that up there. But the slate on Thanksgiving is pretty brutal, other than the Niners game. You've got Green Bay and Detroit is the first game, which Detroit's good, but Green Bay stinks. Washington and Dallas, like, Washington's not good. Dallas usually trounces bad teams. And then you've got Seattle, San Francisco in the nightcap. So you're going to have to get through some bad football to get to a good matchup on Thursday night.
Is that different than any other year? Your traditional teams on Thanksgiving are Cowboys, which their division is typically not great. Washington plays on Thanksgiving a lot. Detroit plays on Thanksgiving a lot. And Chicago plays on Thanksgiving a lot. You're not going to have the greatest of matchups.
Can I just tell you, by the way, real quick note on Dallas Cowboys, they have not beaten a single team over 500 this year. So, I don't want to hear about Skip Bayless or any other stupid Cowboys fans talking about wanting to see the Niners again. Like, no, you are not in our league, and you haven't been for the past 3 years. So
If it wasn't for the Giants, the Cowboys would be an afterthought right now.
one more note I want to get to. Hello, Chris Waddell. Appreciate the super chat coming in with a huge donation. Thank you very much, Chris. Happy
Is
Thanksgiving.
it Christmas or Thanksgiving?
He says, Happy Thanksgiving. The discussion is, would Purdy be good on a crap team? Also, Jimmy being completely awful with Vegas actually makes Purdy look bad within the media. Gives 100% credit to Kyle, which is just how he likes it. I truly believe that's why they didn't sign Brady. Wow, there's a lot in that comment to react to.
Yeah, there is.
Let's start with the first part. Would Purdy be good on a crap team? Grant talked a lot about this today. My response to him was, who cares? Like, it's irrelevant. He's on this team. I don't care. It doesn't matter how he would do with another team, another coach, another players. He's on the 49ers. He has Kyle. He has a supporting cast. I don't care how he would do on other teams.
Would he be as good? Probably not. This is a great system for his strengths.
Right.
Do I think he would have looked decent enough to where a team believes in him? Yeah, because the things that he's really good at translate to any team, any system. When you can pre-snap recognize what the defense is running,
Right.
and then post-snap double check that, and then be ahead of the game on the defense, you're going to be able to succeed in a lot of different systems. And his confidence, like you would point to, oh, he was the last pick in the draft, so it's not likely he would have gotten the confidence. Well, that's the one thing that we know. He's a very borderline cocky person, right?
Yes.
On the football field.
On the field,
he
yeah.
straddles that line of cockiness to just being confident. So I think he would have done well. Would he have gotten the opportunity on any other team? Probably not, because you don't get many snaps as the third string quarterback, and it took multiple injuries to find out what he was. Just like if Trent Green didn't get hurt, Kurt Warner's probably not in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Brock wouldn't have gotten an opportunity with San Francisco if there weren't 2 injuries in front of him. Jimmy being completely awful with Vegas actually makes Purdy look bad within the media. Oh, because basically it's like Kyle pumps all these guys up.
Yeah. Transit. Yeah. I'm glad he said within the media at the end. Yes, there's going to be certain media people that use that to make their argument. Grant could be one of those come the off season.
But Purdy's never been Jimmy's never been as good as Purdy is.
No, but they're saying, see, Purdy's not great. He's better than Jimmy, but Jimmy sucks. It's Kyle making him look really good. I can see that argument I think it'd be mostly the national talking shows where they got to come up with some convoluted crap.
And they don't pay attention. I mean, Shannon Sharp talking about Brock Purdy being a dink and dunk quarterback. Like, dude, you just haven't watched.
Cowherd doesn't even watch football.
Well,
he's stepped in it multiple times. Same with Stephen A. He's stepped in it multiple times where it's hold on, you clearly didn't even watch the game, or you don't even know the rules to football.
Stephen A. Smith, please. I do not care what that man says about football at all. I know much more about football than Stephen A. Smith, and I can say that with somebody who has worked with Stephen A. Smith in the past.
I will say this. There is one time that I care what Stephen A. Smith has to say about football, and it's whenever he's trolling Skip Bayless about the
Okay, fair. The last part of Chris's comment, that's why they didn't sign Brady. I can't speak to that. I don't know. I will say that I understand Kyle looking at Brady's last year in New England and looking at that film and being like, he doesn't look that great. I understand that. Plus, he was, ancient by quarterback standards. They had just gotten to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I could at least understand why they didn't bring in Tom Brady at that point. Now, whether it was because he didn't want Brady to get the credit, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I mean, it would have been a wild thing for them to have done that would have been incredibly unpopular in that locker room. Now, when Tom Brady walks through that door, tunes probably change.
Right.
But at the same time, like, oh, hey, this quarterback had a good year and made the Super Bowl, and you immediately replaced him at great expense because it would have cost them a good bit of money to do it, to move on.
It's
So
like, it reminds me of the Tim Tebow, Peyton Manning thing. Remember, Tebow won a playoff game with the Broncos. Like, he pulled out a lot of one-score games, a lot of come-from-behind games, and you couldn't get rid of that guy, except you were bringing in Peyton Manning. So, yeah, like, he might have been unpopular, but it's like, yeah, Tim Tebow maybe got a raw deal, but we're acquiring Peyton Manning. I think it would have been the same thing with the 49ers. Like, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo just got to the Super Bowl, which he lost. You can't do that to him, except we're bringing in, at that time, I think a 3-time MVP? Like, it's Peyton Manning. So I think you could have gotten away with it if you're Kyle. I don't think you could have gotten away with it, like, if they had drafted a rookie in the first round and been like, oh, we're going to start the rookie, that would have been no-go. But it was friggin' Tom Brady, like the Super Bowl winning machine, Tom Brady.
yeah, I mean, I would love to know the truth at some point in the future about that. Like the full truth to come out in a book or whatever that, yep, this is what happened. I called him, or whatever the story ends up being, Brady saying, yep, I indeed called Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and said, I want to be there. And they rebuffed me.
Oh, he did. I know he did. I don't know if he called them, but he told Wes Welker, who was the Niners receiver coach at the time, that he wanted to go there. You know when that'll come out? If the Niners win a Super Bowl with Shanahan. That'll come out then, because then it'll be safe for that information to come out, because the Niners will have gotten their championship anyway.
I think it'll probably come out a few more years down the line when Brady's a little more removed from being tied. Like, there aren't players whose careers he shared, played with and things like that. So him spilling the beans about his playing days doesn't really affect any current players. There's no players that are going to have to go to their weekly press conference and answer questions about it and crap like that. I think Brady is smart enough and cares enough about other players to not put them in that situation. Because what would happen with Garoppolo, it might not happen now that he's not starting. But if Garoppolo was a starting quarterback in the NFL and Brady spilled the beans about that comment being that they're sticking with that guy being about him, what's the first question Brady gets the first press conference he shows up to about all that?
You mean Jimmy? Yeah. I agree. I absolutely agree. I don't want to get too far away from Niners Seahawks, though. We're already way longer than we thought we were going to go with this show. So before we go, the one thing I wanted to get to, it looks like Jason Peters is going to start at right tackle for the Seahawks. He has allowed 8 pressures in just 4 games played this year and only 1 start. So that is potentially a weakness. Nick Bosa is going to go against him. Chase Young is going to go against him. I think the Niners could really get after Geno Smith in this game.
I would also like them to maybe send a blitz that way and stack it up to where Peters is the one that has to swap onto the blitzer. Because can he keep up with a Greenlaw? Can he keep up with a Warner? I'm not so sure that he's going to be able to drop back far enough to stop a linebacker who's coming with a head of steam.
It's not a crazy take by you at all. The Niners should be able to get pressure.
I only make good takes. Stop acting shocked. We've had 4 years of this. Get used to it.
The Niners have, I think it's 9 sacks in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
So their defense has really turned it up. They should be able to get to Geno Smith. And we've seen with Geno, he can make some big throws under pressure, but there's a couple of times a game where he just loses sort of the feel of the pocket, and he can either throw a bad pass for an interception or take a big hit. And if he takes a big hit with an arm that's already banged up, then Seattle could really be in some trouble.
Yeah. I mean, they could be in trouble with Geno. Geno's not been very good this year. He's been very, very mediocre. I think he has 12 touchdowns to 8 interceptions this year. And he didn't play well at all against the Niners previously.
So. Right. Like we said, they only scored 43 points in 3 games against the Niners last year. Chris Waddell is back, says, you just know it would have become a Brady offense with all his wants and needs versus the robot Kyle demands. That's not an unfair point.
It's not an unfair point that Brady is a pass. Those teams became crazy pass happy in Tampa. And what does Kyle Shanahan like to do?
He likes to run. And not only that, but there was a lot of talk of Brady was kind of struggling a little bit when he was trying to run the Tampa stuff. And then basically they ended up switching and running a lot of the Patriots stuff. And then all of a sudden the offense looked a lot better. So would Kyle have been willing to do that? We don't know. So
Probably not.
We'll never be able to answer that. Yeah, we don't know. But again, tomorrow night, I think the Niners defense is going to be able to get after Geno Smith. I think they're going to be able to run the hell out of the ball. Do you have a final score prediction?
I'll come up with one real quick. I hadn't thought about it. I don't like to think about those things, and I purposely avoid other people's predictions so that I don't get influenced by other minutia. And if I come up with a story prediction and then you bring up good points that I didn't think about,
which happens often,
I have a bias towards what I had in my head, and then I fight internally about, okay, should I change it with the new information or not? But I'll say 31-17.
Wow. So you think they're going to put it on them?
I think it will be close most of the way, but I think the Niners pull away.
Which is exactly what happened in the playoff game last year. People forget because
exactly what we need to see so Grant stops talking about it. A close game that the Niners pull away in the fourth quarter.
The Niners won the playoff game last year against Seattle 41-23. But going into the fourth quarter, it was a one-score game. It was 23-17 Niners. And then don't forget, Seattle's in the red zone driving to take the lead before Bosa Charles Omenihu strips the ball from Geno Smith, and Bosa recovers, and then the Niners just poleaxed him from that point forward. So it could be a game where it remains close through three quarters and the Niners pull away late. I'm going to say it's a Thursday game. It's in Seattle. It's short week. Seahawks are desperate, right? Because they just lost to the Rams. So I think there's going to be an added element of that. I will say the Niners win. I'll say 28-20 Niners.
Okay, I got to pull this up here. We got a prediction from our comments. Quincy, I'm going to say Waquinto, says San Francisco or SF 23, C Chicks 23. You predicted a tie? What is wrong with you?
I know this is crazy and it goes against everything that makes logical sense. I would rather the 49ers lose than a tie. Like, I hate ties. I hate them. I wouldn't know what to do in the instant reaction if they tie.
I would rather tie than lose, but I don't like ties. And predicting one, wow. Put a bet on that. I would bet you get really good odds to predict a tie in the NFL.
It's true. You know what would happen? You know what it would? I can tell you exactly how it would happen. The score is tied. Niners drive down late. They need a 45-yard field goal from Jake Moody, and he misses it in overtime. That's how the game would end up tied. But anyway, Andre says prediction is Brock and Bosa will be eating turkey after the game. I hate that. Don't make the 49ers or any players. They made the Seahawks players do it in San Francisco a few years ago. I hated it. The players Sherman and Russell Wilson looked uncomfortable. They didn't know what was happening. Don't force the players to do that. I don't like that. I think that's a bad look by the TV networks doing that.
I guess I didn't notice any of that. That's what it is. It just dawned on me. I am a Christmas Scrooge and you're the Thanksgiving Scrooge.
No, I have no problem with Thanksgiving.
By the way, I'm trying to remember. My wife actually asked, and we couldn't remember. Do you do lasagna? Are you the one that does lasagna on Thanksgiving?
Yep. My aunt makes incredible lasagna.
That makes you a Thanksgiving Scrooge right off the bat.
Well, we don't do
I'm not done. You hate pie.
Yes, I do hate pie.
So there's no part of Thanksgiving, traditional Thanksgiving food that you do on Thanksgiving.
No, that's not true. We don't do lasagna in place of turkey. We do both. So it's a feast. It's better. You get all the turkey Thanksgiving stuff you want, plus the best lasagna you've ever had in your life. Oh, God. Diego says spoon of mayo if they tie. I'm never doing that again.
While wearing a Woody outfit.
I will never do the spoonful of mayonnaise in my life ever again. I did it once when I lost the bet to Michelle. It is horrible. It is physically scarring for anyone, if you're wondering. Brother MF and Bob says Kittle feasts on Turkey Day, 130 plus yards and 2 tubbos. 100, man, I'll sign for that.
And also, he had the emoji of apparently like the Declaration of Independence there at the end. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't know what's the translation there. Andre says, I'll take the lasagna over the turkey. Stephen Duckett, YouTube channel member, says 28-10 Niners will be eating turkey and leaving their leftovers on Seattle's field for them to pick up. Revenge is a coming. I hope so. I hope the Niners roll them. Whatever happens, good, bad, ugly, We will be there live for the Instant Reaction podcast after the game on the YouTube channel, on the Twitch channel. Shout out to everybody watching on Twitch. They all love me. They hate you, Levin. The Twitch audience is the smartest audience in the business.
I want to say real quick before we leave, that revenge note reminds me. I cannot believe the Seahawks actual Twitter account tweeted out that video of the last two times these teams played on Thanksgiving or whatever. It's like, you just gave the Niners bulletin board material from your official account. Like,
I did see that. I will point out that, I don't know, I remember the Niners going up to Seattle wearing the throwback uniforms, just like they're wearing tomorrow night, and stopping the Seahawks on the 1 yard line to gain the #1 seed in the NFC. I do recall that. Just saying, that would be my response to them.
Mark M says Twitch is for nerds. I don't go that far, but
that's unnecessarily mean. Chris Waddell, shout out to you. We're a lasagna family too. Boom. Eat it, Levin.
That's it, Chris. Take your $100 back. I
don't don't say that. Glock Purdy says, I'm sorry, before Salad says Glock Purdy's going off tomorrow. Aaron H says, all I want for my birthday tomorrow is a win. Happy birthday, Aaron. Thanksgiving birthday. Is that good or bad? I don't know what that would be like.
Probably great because you get all the Thanksgiving food and then you get presents at the end of it.
But you wouldn't be able to like do whatever you wanted to do on your birthday because it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah. But your entire family shows up.
That could be good or bad.
That's true. But you also get both cake and pie.
Well, only 50% of that is good. Pie is a waste of time. Fruit should almost never be cooked. All right, that's going to wrap up this edition of the show. Again, join us live afterwards for the Instant Reaction podcast. I hope everybody has a great, safe, happy, healthy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much to everybody. I'm incredibly thankful for all of you. Your support has been incredible. Levin, your support has been incredible. Everybody on the Gold Standard Podcast Network that has helped me do this thing. We are building something here. I'm so proud of it and so grateful to everybody.
Ditto.
Wow, I give a heartfelt expression of emotion. I'm pouring my soul out to you, and you give me a response, a one-word response, citing like 1970s technology. That's what you got for me.
Citing 1970s technology?
Yeah, a ditto is like a copy. Ditto was from like, I don't know, the 70s or whenever the hell they were created. That's what you gave me. You know what? I take it all back. You're
Hold on now. I know ditto from the movie Ghost. What was a ditto?
A ditto is like a photocopy. You don't know that?
No.
Ditto definition, the same thing used again. Used in lists
I know the
and accounts.
definition, but I didn't know it came from an actual like device that existed. I thought it was something invented in the Ghost movie that then caught on.
No,
I have two older sisters. I had to watch the Ghost movie over and over again. So I know that movie frontwards and backwards.
Ditto, like in school, you got a ditto, right? Your teacher had like wrote out a bunch of math problems or whatever, and she gave you a ditto. It was a copy of the original thing. That's a thing. I'm not making it up.
We're gonna have to look up where the term ditto originated from.
Well, either way, you're an asshole. So how about that? Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thankful for an asshole.
Instant Reaction Show. See you later.